Hey, Con, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. I can hear you just fine.
Yes. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you, Dennis.
Grant, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Grant can hear you, and I can hear Grant. Can Dennis hear us?
That's the question.
He doesn't seem like he can.
Huh.
Oh,
Now you
now
can
he's
hear
got.
me, right?
Yes.
Can you hear us, Dennis?
Yeah, I can now. I don't know what was going on there.
Huh.
It's a mystery without any clues, as they say. How's everyone today?
Good, good, good.
I know.
All
Doing
right.
good. Happy. What day are we on? Wednesday.
It's
Yay.
Groundhog Day. Every day is exactly the same. I don't want to hear anything else.
True, Groundhog Day.
Some days it's sunny, some days cloudy, but it's all the same day.
I love it.
It's getting to be monotonous. You know what I mean? But could be worse, right?
Amen to that.
So
I
I
see
shouldn't-
sunshine where I'm at, so I'm not complaining.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. On the right side of the ground and all that kind of stuff, people say. All right. Hey, Allison, how are you today?
Great.
Supposedly, everyone's going to be contacted by Pop Shop Live. I raised 10 kinds of hell and I don't know what their problem is, but that's what, when you work with startups, that's the kind of stuff that happens sometimes.
They sent an email to me for the Friday workshop, so.
Oh, good, good.
Can you forward it, Allison? This is
Sure.
Eva. I have not gotten it, and I sent an email to Alex, and I've had no response. And now I've got 20 people that I've got to train how to do this with me for 15 minutes. So I really need to get a hold of them.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
make-
forward it.
copy me on your email, dtrots@acceleraterural.org. So
Okay.
that I can be, I'll be the bad
Alright.
guy and.
I'll
yell
send
and
it
scream.
now.
I'll resend it to him after this with you on copy, Dennis.
Okay, great. I actually, my contact is one of the senior officers and she is all over Alex right now, I think. Poor Alex, I feel for him. He's only like 1 year out of college, I think. So he's kind of a rookie and I think he really stepped into it with us. Because we've had quite a demand for this, for Shop Rural Day and, no better way to learn than trial by fire. It's kind of my mentality.
Happy troubles for Alex.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. We're going to finish up with our EQ for entrepreneurs. I hope you all are enjoying it. It's one of my favorite subjects personally. I just think it's I wish I had been taught this when I was little. I would have maybe practiced not being such a jerk. I don't know, but that's I guess that's what they say. Hindsight's 2020, right? So let me share my screen here and see what we can come up with here. Okay.
Let's talk about fear, because fear is a reality. When you're an entrepreneur, fear is everywhere. I don't believe a great company can be built, but I do believe that a great company, in fact, most great companies, maybe every great company, is built by people
Okay,
that felt
obviously,
fear and worked.
I'm not getting sound, so let me see what I can do about that. Sorry about that.
Dennis, we were able to hear it. I could hear it.
Yeah, at the beginning, he wasn't able to hear us for some reason, but
Okay.
we could hear him. So I
Here
don't
for
know
a
what's going
second.
on his end.
And-
Okay. Do you want to text it to him, Grant, in the chat?
Yeah, that's smart. I'll do that real quick.
No.
Okay.
Hopefully this will work.
what do we feel fear about? So Harvard Business Review actually did a study where they identified 7 specific and repeated buckets of fear that are felt by entrepreneurs. Okay, so the basic one is financial insecurity. It's really risky doing a startup, right? You're not building your 401k. The second one is running out of money, right? The most common fear of entrepreneurs, we're not gonna outlast our cash on hand. You know, we're not gonna be able to make it. We've got 7 weeks, we're running towards a wall. The third one is imposter syndrome. It's the idea that I've tricked people into giving me money. They think I'm someone that I'm not, and I actually can't do it. And I'm gonna get found out. The next one is that the idea is no good. I've convinced people that this really great idea, you know, is gonna change the world, and I'm not sure I 100% believe it right now. And then there's the shame or embarrassment factor. You know, what is it gonna be like when I have to, you know, tell everyone the company blew up and that I failed?
I just want to take a second here and we'll come back to this. Let's see here. So I want to tell you a funny story that I learned. So I was in California, totally unrelated, and I was meeting with a entrepreneur. He was an executive at a company, pretty high up in a pretty large technology company that you may never have heard of, but maybe you did. So we were just talking, and he goes, you know, I'm from the Washington D.C. area, like you are, Dennis, and you know, I also spent time in Boston. And he goes, I can tell you, when I was in D.C. and I was looking to do a startup, investors would say to me, if you fail with this startup, you'll never work in this town again. That's what they told him back in the 80s. And then he went to Boston and they said, well, you know, we understand that sometimes you can fail and we're a little bit flexible, but we really don't like it when companies fail. And then he went to Silicon Valley, where he was like the executive vice president of this big company. And he told me that this was his 15th startup that he was working on. He burned through about $25 million with all these startups and all these ideas. And they kept coming back to him. Keep going, don't give up. Well, he ended up selling this company where he was executive. He ended up becoming the CEO. He sold it for $2 billion on his 15th try. And in Silicon Valley, what I learned from this guy and others, which I found amazing, if you have a startup, and let's say you sell and you make, let's just make up a number, $250 million, right? That's pretty cool. Wow, I made $250 million. He said in Silicon Valley, they will not even invite you to their meetings because they just feel like you were lucky as hell. That's all that was. And they really don't want to hear anything from you. So now if you do it again, if you do have another startup and it goes well, then they might give you some credibility. Okay, this guy might have some idea, or this woman might have some idea, and they'll kind of work with you a little bit. But that difference in mentality, you know, between, you know, are you learning? Are you progressing? Are you actually going to make it? Or should you just, you know, fold your tent and pity yourself and go work at McDonald's and all that kind of stuff? So what I learned from that experience, not that I am a Silicon Valley guy, because I'm not, but I also learned that you really can't give up. You cannot just, you know, feel like I'm going to stop, because if you're the kind of person who started something, unless, you know, some strange circumstance that, you know, your particular effort was weird or whatever, I just think you have to really never give up, like Jimmy Valvano, never, ever, ever, ever give up. And it really is true. And this guy, he went through a lot. He didn't really have a success until he was in his late 40s, early 50s. So all those years and all that money. And I'll never forget it when he sent me the press release that they had sold for, you know, several $1 billion. You know, that's how it is. That's how it works. So if any of you are failing or feel like you are or think you might, just realize it's just a step along the way. It's not the end result. All right, so that's it for my preaching today. Go back to here, and here we go.
You know, I can't even stomach
And the
that
sound is not
feeling of
working.
imagining what that's
Sorry,
going to be
I
like.
do not know
Then there's the team, you know.
what's going on. Oh, boy.
I could hear it again this time. I think the same thing happened yesterday.
What in the hell is going on with this?
I don't think he can hear us. Dennis, can you hear us?
It's really a difficult day for some reason, so let's try this again. Okay. See if that worked.
You're the right people.
Yep, looks like it. Okay. I'm literally switching speakers every single time, and one that works one time doesn't work the next. So
They're not going to be able to do it. I don't have the right people around me to execute. And finally, the opportunity cost, that big corporate job
Incredible.
that you didn't take where you would have been building your 401k, and I'm never going to get it back. And I got myself off the path. And so
Dennis,
now-
we can hear you. Can you hear us?
can you hear the woman speaking?
Yes.
Okay, well, I can't, so I'll pay attention and wave and something if you guys can't hear it. Okay, so let me share my screen. Sorry about that.
Awesome.
I don't know what's going on here.
saying I got to work hard, I need to figure out myself. They think I'm someone that I'm not, and I actually can't do it. And I'm going to get found out. The next one is that the idea is no good. I've convinced people that this really great idea, you know, is going to change the world, and I'm not sure I 100% believe it right now. And then there's the shame or embarrassment factor. You know, what is it going to be like when I have to, you know, tell everyone the company blew up and that I failed? You know, I can't even stomach that feeling of imagining what that's going to be. Then there's the team. You know, I didn't hire the right people. They're not going to be able to do it. I don't have the right people around me to execute. And finally, the opportunity cost, that big corporate job that you didn't take where you would have been building your 401k. And I'm never going to get it back. And I got myself off the path. And see, now I'm spinning. Like, I am getting upset just talking about this stuff because I have been there, and you know, I was that founder, and I mean, I had all of this. You know, it's real and it's no fun. But here's the thing: fear is not all bad. Right? I don't want to say that all fear is bad. Fear can be a great driver, right? If you're saying, I got to work hard, I need to figure out my sales channels before I run out of money, or you're going, I got to hit my goal this week because that's what I said I was going to do, like that can be really, really motivating. It can drive progress and learning. But here's the thing. It's incredibly damaging when fear becomes physical. When you experience fear as a physical sensation, it stops you from being able to be effective. You're tense. You know, your heart rate goes up, like your breathing increases, like your blood vessels constrict, right? Your mental focus, you know, becomes insanely sharp. So this is the classic fight or flight response, you know, and that is driven by your amygdala. Your brain is going, what do I need to do to stay safe? So how do you think that is going to affect your ability to make good decisions? So the fact is, you cannot build a great team or a company or even have a good day when you're feeling like that. So when you become aware that you're in that feeling, you're having those physical fear sensations, just stop, just slow everything down. Don't make any decisions. You know, you got to address that. You know, back to sort of the idea of being in the red, right? If you've got that level of fear, you're in the red. Go back to your presence tools, go for a walk, get outside, do something physical. You can talk to your team. I personally find that when I say how I'm feeling, it like cuts it in half at least, if not more, right? It's a little bit like, it's not that the fear isn't real. The fear is real and it's rational, but it also reminds me a little bit of like the monster under the bed, you know, and like when mom and dad comes in and like looks under the bed and the monster's not there, like the kid feels better, right? So it's a little bit like that. When you share it, it kind of, fear hates the light of day, you know? So if you're feeling that way, you share it with someone else, it's gonna help you lessen it. If there's no one that you feel like you can really talk to about it, which sometimes happens to CEOs because you don't want to say to your team that you feel afraid because you feel like you need to build confidence. You can always also, you know, by the way, I would encourage you to say it to them anyway, because you're going to be they're not going to be freaked out. Your team's going to be glad that you shared with them. So if you are a CEO and you are worried about showing your fear and vulnerabilities to your team, like think about it. If you decide to do it, you're going to get a lot of value out of it. But you can also write it down. You know, sometimes just writing things down sucks the power out of them. And, you know, coach yourself. Just ask yourself a simple question. What's the one thing that matters right now? And that can sort of help you get back on track. The point is not to stop feeling fear or to imagine that you're ever going to get to a point that you're not going to feel it, because you will not. By starting a company or, you know, deciding you're going to be an entrepreneur, you've put yourself in a place where you're going to feel more fear probably than even the average person. The point is to recognize when it shifts from working for you to working against you, and then to manage it. So I love to say, like, feel the fear and do it anyway. The most powerful leaders are those who acknowledge and embrace their fear and then turn it into an asset. Okay, so this is like my favorite section. We're going to talk about flexible thinking. So you decided to work on this new thing and you had a plan. It was probably like an amazing plan. But as Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. The one thing we know for sure about your plan is that it is wrong. Your plan is wrong, your financial projections are wrong. Whether things turn out great for your company or blows up, it's not going to be what you thought. The fact is, what you know about your business is a tiny fraction of everything that there is to know. So if you know this much about your industry and your business and your competitors and your customers and your company, there's another 95% out there that you don't know. If everything was known, somebody would have already done what you're doing right now. So you made your plan with only 5% of the available information. Of course your plan is wrong. And that does not mean it is a bad plan or that you are not smart. The number one thing that highly intelligent people have in common is that they're wrong a lot. Jeff Bezos said that. So to be an entrepreneur, you have to get great at being wrong. You can call it growth mindset, you can call it learning mindset, but today we're calling it flexible thinking. So what are the elements of flexible thinking? So there's this cliche, strong opinions loosely held. People like to make fun of this on Twitter, but it's a cliche for a reason, and that's because it's really useful. So strong opinions means that you have a point of view and you're moving in a direction, right? You have to do that. If you're not moving in a direction and you haven't made a commitment, you're circling the drain. Loosely held means you're willing to abandon your strong opinions in the face of evidence to the contrary. You are taking a hypothesis-driven approach. You have beliefs about your business, you're moving in a direction, you test your beliefs, you talk to customers, you get data. And if the data shows your hypothesis was wrong, you don't go looking for better data. You say thank you, and you change your plan and you go test the next thing. This involves a total detachment from needing to be right. As an entrepreneur, you have to stand in the mirror practicing saying, I was wrong, I was wrong, I was wrong, I was wrong, over and over and over and over again until it's just as comfortable for you as saying hello. The core skill early in your company is learning. You got to also be comfortable in a state of just not knowing, which, by the way, I hate that, right? I'm a J, like I want to make a decision, like I just want to get there, I want to know. I hate not knowing. But that's really the definition of being a founder, is just being comfortable with the unknown. And then what is going to get you through this, and the key to success, is a commitment to asking continually better questions. The questions that you're trying to answer determine what you're going to be working on, and that is going to determine how quickly you're going to make progress in your business. So what are good questions? Good questions are sometimes called powerful questions because they generate thinking as opposed to generating a simple answer. They can't be answered yes or no, and they may have many different possible answers. A powerful question invites creative thinking and questioning of assumptions. So you might be sitting with your team and saying, who thinks we should start charging our beta customers? That's a question that you could ask. It's not a very powerful question because it's just asking for a yes or no, and it's not prompting a discussion. A better question on that topic would be, what might happen if we start charging our customers? So now imagine the conversation you're going to have if you ask that second question. It's going to put you into a conversation that's going to invite creative thinking. Powerful questions are universal. So you can just have this toolkit of questions and you can just bring them out with you. They apply to lots of situations. When you get really good at flexible thinking, these questions will become second nature to you. You know, like what's working, right? I love to ask like positive questions rather than negative questions. When you focus on what's not working, it takes your brain into a negative place. But if you ask what's working, you know, one thing to say is what's working and how can we do more of it? Right? And that takes you into a positive generative place. Another one that I love to ask is what's at stake here? Because when you name the stakes, you know, behind a decision, it can tell you, you know, how essential is this? And if you're worrying about something where the stakes actually aren't that big, asking what's at stake here can cause you to let that question go and focus somewhere else. So just like we looked at the profile of the person who isn't self-aware and we thought about like how bad it would be to work for that person or with that person, here's another frame on that, which is thinking about being in a fixed thinking mindset or a judgmental mindset versus a flexible thinking mindset. And I want to like, again, just point out that these are states of being. They're not kind of absolutes. So we all spend time over here in fixed and we all spend time over here in flexible. So fixed people are feedback avoiders. They've got their story. So you may have been in a meeting or seen someone in a meeting when they're pitching or they're presenting. And they go into it like a fight. What they're trying to do is convince you that their point of view is right. So if someone asks a question, the purpose of answering the question is to knock down the assumptions, right? Whereas if you go into a meeting with a different kind of flexible attitude and someone asks you a question, where you can go is curiosity. Like, oh, what a great question. I hadn't thought about that before. Let me respond and kind of engage with you on the question that you've just asked. It's just a completely different approach. Where do you think fear puts you? Fear puts you over there. Ego, needing to be right, puts you over there. You know, fatigue, being triggered, puts you over there, right? So we all get over there and we need to work to get back over here. And how do you think it affects the rest of your team? It is not surprising that flexible thinkers are much more effective leaders. Flexible thinkers build loyalty, build trust, they're able to show humility, and they engender cooperation and a greater taking of risk by everyone on their team because they create a safe space for that to happen. So we're never going to be there 100%, but the more time we can spend in flexible thinking than fixed thinking, the better everything is going to be. So let's talk about feedback. Who loves to get feedback? I love that. A lot of people that love to get feedback. Unfortunately, feedback has picked a pretty bad rap. If you're getting feedback, a lot of people think it's because you did something wrong. You're broken and I have to fix you by giving you some feedback that's going to make you better. So like in the context of being an entrepreneur and actually just like in the context of life, like we need to flip this on its head. Feedback is a positive. Feedback is learning. Feedback is growth. So when you're getting feedback, you don't have to agree with everything that's being said, but flexible thinkers, like we just saw, are open to feedback and look for the learning opportunity in it. So, you know, one of the reasons why we don't love feedback is because it feels like evaluation, but actually evaluation is only one of the 3 kinds of feedback. And it might be actually the least important, especially in this context. So there are 3 kinds of feedback, and they're appreciation, evaluation, and then coaching. So let's talk about appreciation first. Appreciation is feedback, right? And you should just hand it out. Just give it out like candy. In fact, give it out more than candy. It's better for you than candy. So, you know, when people are doing things around you, you know, that are helpful, like notice them, right? Just show people that you notice them and care. I'm not talking about like the culture of giving everyone a trophy. I'm just talking about the culture of we're all working really hard. Let's take a minute and just thank each other and acknowledge, right? That feels really good. It's not evaluative. It's just saying thank you. You should also be doing evaluation on a regular basis with your team. You know, people should have a defined job description and, you know, goals that they need to meet. And you're going to want to check in every once in a while, 3 months or 6 months against those goals and kind of track and see how people are doing. But what I'm talking about now is like the kind of feedback that sort of happens on a daily basis that's just meant for growth. It's not evaluative and it's not pure appreciation. It's coaching and growth feedback. So how do you become great at getting and giving feedback? So one of the ways is you ask for it, right? The best kind of feedback is the kind of feedback that you asked for. What did I do well in that meeting that we just got out of? Like, what didn't go so well? Ask someone for feedback right in the moment, and then you'll be able to incorporate it right away. But make sure you're ready. So if you're feeling triggered or you're feeling a little upset or off, not a great time to get feedback. When you're getting feedback, practice active listening. So you're not going to argue, you're not going to speak. Don't question the content, question for understanding. So remember that it's hard to give feedback. So like have some empathy for the person who you've asked for the feedback, because that's a difficult place for them to be. And remember also, this is an exchange. So it's not like you've asked me for feedback, I'm telling and you're listening. We're having a conversation. Then you might check for understanding. So what I'm hearing you say is that you didn't think that I handled the market sizing question well, that you thought that my answer sounded defensive, right? You want to check and make sure that what the other person said is the same as what you heard. Once you're pretty sure you're clear on what the feedback was, say thank you, accept it, and go away. You can decide later what you're going to do about it and how you're going to address it. And it may take a while for it to sink in. And then on the flip side, when you're giving feedback, before you give it, make sure the person that you're going to give it to actually wants it. I noticed something in there I'd like to share with you. Is this a good time for us to talk about that? Right? And when you're giving someone feedback, you don't want to, you want to share your observations as opposed to your judgment, right? So you want to really stay with, this is what I saw, this is what I observed, this is what I noticed. It's up to the person getting the feedback to make the interpretation. You don't want the feedback to come across as, you should be more like this, you should be more like that. You just want to share what you observed and let them learn from it. So if you've got trouble with feedback, practice. Like, I think it's great to practice on things that are not very loaded. Ask for feedback on, how your presentation skills were, or how your meeting agenda was, or something that's kind of not very deep and personal. If there's certain people you don't want to get feedback from because they just trigger you, that is totally fine. If there are certain topics that are off the table, that is also totally fine. You should work to expand on it. Like, again, back to that whole idea of like expanding the boxes and reducing your blind spot. Like, the more feedback you get, the smaller your blind spot's going to get. Some people like to have mantras. Like, I know someone who actually repeats in his head before he gets feedback, feedback is growth, feedback is growth, feedback is growth, so that he can kind of like calm himself down so that he can hear what's being said. Whatever is your trick for managing it, just look for what's true, the 10% that's true. And if you don't like the rest, you don't have to take it. The truth is that high-performing entrepreneurs, teams, and cultures are all feedback seekers. So especially if you're leading at teams, the first step is for you to model asking for feedback and then also responding to feedback in a positive and a thankful way. We're going to talk about coaching. So we used to think that this was a coach, right? When we thought of the word coach, we thought about sports. And now we think that this is a coach. Like, a coach is Wendy Rhodes in Billions, like designed to get the top performance out of the traders. But we're not talking about either of those kind of coaches today. Today, we're talking about growth coaching. So what is coaching exactly? Coaching is focused on questions and focused on the future. It is definitely not therapy, okay? We're not going to be doing therapy with the people that we work with or even our family members. Therapy is backward looking and helps shed light on problems and patterns and what the causes may have been in the past. It's also not consulting, which is about evaluating problems and recommending solutions. And it's not really mentoring. Mentoring is about, someone who has more experience, like sharing their experience, to help someone who's less experienced by sharing wisdom. So coaching is future-focused and question-based. So if you're a manager, you're leading a team at a startup, you definitely need to spend some time over here but you want to spend as much time as possible over here because that is how you're going to help your team get on a steep growth curve so that the company can grow faster. The more effective your team comes at solving problems by themselves as opposed to going to you for the solution, the better you're all going to be. If you're an entrepreneur, you get very used to, when you're a solo entrepreneur, kind of doing everything yourselves and having all the answers. And it's really, really hard to, when you have a team, not to just treat them as an extension of yourself that's going to enable you to be more efficient by taking things off your to-do list and putting it on theirs. That's not going to get the best kind of mileage and results out of your team. And frankly, it's not going to make them feel very happy and fulfilled. So if you can get out of that mindset and have them own their own workflow and their own decision making and empower them by being a coach as opposed to an instructor and a list giver and an order giver, your team's going to be so much more happy. The other thing is, like, we all need to grow. Everyone wants to grow. And research shows that, like, sustainable growth on a personal level has to be internally generated. So if you want to be an effective coach for your team, you have to kind of unlearn that skill of just telling people what to do and, get into a position where you can really lean back and let them find solutions. So coaching is a relationship between any two people, in which the coach supports the coachee to make a meaningful change. It's future looking, it's aspirational, and most importantly, it is owned and directed by the person who is receiving the coaching. Here's a quick methodology that anyone can use to coach someone else on a specific issue. We're just going to call this spot coaching because this could just be a 10-minute conversation. So who can you coach? Anyone. You can coach your child, you can coach your parent, you can coach your team members, you can coach your employees, you can coach anyone who asks, and exactly 0 people that don't ask you, right? So if the person you want to coach who you think needs coaching doesn't buy into it, non-starter. So what's a coachable issue? So like anything for this purpose, sort of anything where personal growth and work kind of intersect. So this could be career development, it could be time management, it could be stress, work relationships, leadership style. It doesn't have to be like a big thing to be a coachable issue. Like a great coachable issue that comes up all the time is like, I'm constantly late to meetings. What can I do about that? Or, I want to get to inbox 0 is a coachable issue. So anything can be the way into a coachable issue. So you can have a coachable conversation in like 10 minutes. Like this could be 7 questions. So a great starting point is what's on your mind. Then I love to ask the question, and what else? Because usually the first thing someone says isn't actually the issue. You can keep digging by saying, what's the real challenge for you? So it's kind of like you're going level deeper and a level deeper and a level deeper. Asking what you want, like this might feel obvious, but sometimes like by asking this question, you can help people discover what they really want, which they might not even be aware of. So they might be looking at a problem from the outside and not really know where they're even coming from until they hear you ask that question. If you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? This is helping people understand their choices and how they value different things. So you're not telling them what choice to make. You are helping them uncover the unconscious decisions when they're choosing one thing over another. And then the final question is great because you're asking for feedback. When you ask someone what was most useful to you, you're saying, what did I do that helped you? Like, help me be better at doing this in the future. So, we all feel pressure to get stuff done and to have the answer. So it's like really tempting to jump in with advice and solutions or like share your own experience. If you really want to coach someone, don't do that, okay? I've done this so many times. I've made this mistake, right? I'll come in because I'm like, oh yeah, I get that. I've been there, and you want to like share and connect. You'll see the person's eyes, it's like the curtains came down, right? Because now you're not talking about them and helping them do the work. You're sharing about yourself. You'll be just amazed at how much more powerful an experience this is if you can stay out of sharing your own experience and just really lean back instead of leaning forward. Coaching is not just a process like we just went through. It's also just a way of being. There's actually a great book called The Coaching Mindset, which talks about this, and it's about kind of bringing a coaching perspective to everything that you do. So the essence of being a coach starts with presence, right? It all comes back to presence. So like literally just being there fully present and really listening. then, having an empathic stance. Like, do you hold everyone that you work with and the person that you're speaking with in unconditional positive regard? Are you really listening? Are you listening to either fix, solve, or critique? Emotional engagement. Like, is your level of emotional engagement appropriate? Like, if somebody tells you something that is deeply upsetting, you should be connecting with what they're feeling, right? You're not detached, you're engaged. Boundary awareness, so understanding like what is theirs to fix versus yours to fix, right? And really kind of drawing a clear boundary so that you're not solving someone else's problem. And finally, like the courage to challenge. When someone says something that doesn't ring true or where you feel like they're not being honest with themselves, having the courage to call time out and say, that doesn't sound quite right, can be really, really powerful. Sometimes people need that. They need you to challenge them. So if there's one thing to take away from this idea of coaching, it's moving away from fix, tell, solve. And you need to spend some time there, right? We're all trying to move fast, but the more you can stay and ask, listen, reflect, like the better everything is gonna be for you and your team. And when we kind of go up back to the level of sort of overall emotional intelligence, your job as an entrepreneur and as a leader is not to have answers. Your job is to have questions. And your legacy, it might not be creating the next unicorn company. Like for most of us, like that's not gonna happen. But what will definitely happen is that you are going to have an impact on everyone you work with and on everyone around you. And so developing your EQ will help ensure that that impact is a positive one. Thank you.
Okay. So I think that's really cool. So I'd love to hear what you all think about this, about the subject. And this particular video, as she starts off and says this is her favorite one, there's actually some really good stuff there that I'd encourage you all to look at that one again as well. Anybody want to comment?
Dennis, this is Allison. To me, it's not only the people that work for you, but it's also your customers as well that can be applied directly to them.
Yeah. It's really about relationships and in every way. We all have, we have family, we have work, we have friends, etc. And if you develop this ability, this emotional intelligence ability, you're going to have more success, in all of these areas. Communicating, as she talked about there, about empathy. One of the hardest things for people to do is to empathize appropriately, right? There's this uncertainty. How should you act and how should you react? And I think the more authentic you become, the more real you become, the more aware of, what's making you feel the way you're feeling, the more effective you will be at all levels of interaction with people, I think. I think that, Allison brings up this idea of customers. I think one of the things that is always really challenging is when there's a problem with a customer. And if the customer is angry or unreasonable, how do you deal with that? I'm the kind of person that I get madder. You gonna be mad at me? You ain't seen mad yet. That's just how I was brought up or how I have developed for whatever reason. I don't necessarily retain my empathy when someone is angry and threatening to me. I tend to become angry and threatening right back. I don't know if any of y'all can relate to that, but that's one clear example to me that I have learned over time to reflect, to listen. And in many cases, it turns out that my perception was wrong. That person was not that angry. They had the, what do they call it? Resting bitch face or whatever. You've seen that? That little meme, they just look angry and maybe they weren't that angry. So, these are all things I've learned.
Anyone else? I'm going to ask Grant a question as currently an enrolled student. Hey, Grant, do you have any in your classes or anything in your experience at ECU that deals with this kind of stuff, this kind of soft skills?
Not really, unfortunately. Most of the stuff we learn in school is kind of just the book work.
The hard stuff, the hard skills.
Yeah, the stuff that puts me to sleep at night.
Yeah.
There's one class I'm taking that is kind of messed up right now because of COVID, but it's kind of the more interpersonal skills, like dining manners, stuff like that. But other than that, and I mean, that's very, very basic stuff. Other than that, it's not really much.
Interesting.
It might be a different perspective, but as a medical student, we have a really big emphasis on soft skills. So we talk about like gaining trust of patients and kind of like subtle things such as like ways you can make people feel more listened to and more heard, and just kind of like a lot of these an almost algorithmic approach to charisma. And I have very much seen like dividends from that in like my own startup. It's that kind of way of talking to people has helped me kind of retain a team that's worked for me for free when their market rate is so high otherwise.
Yeah. So what you're saying is you're learning to be a con man, is that right?
I mean, half of medicine is just believing what you're gonna get is gonna work, right? So
yeah. Yes, the placebo effect is the most powerful medicine, generally. Not always, but often. Annette wants to say something. I can see her chomping at the bit.
I was just so glad to hear that medical student say that, because that's exactly, they have to be able to communicate with a variety of different people, with angry people, with hurting people. You don't see them when they're at their best. You usually see them when they're at their worst. And so you have to be able to de-escalate that and move them on beyond. So I was so happy to hear him say that.
Well, Annette, for those of you who don't know, is a professor at Brody Medical School, and she's, seen it all, done it all. So thank you, Annette, for that. Amanda's asking for the algorithm. I don't know, Arjun, I don't know if you can lay that algorithm out. My guess is you can't, but hey, if you can, send it to Amanda.
Yeah, I can't say enough about the lack of soft skill training that I received in veterinary school. It's pleasing to me that you are actually getting it, but I'm having to learn this at a later stage in life. And yeah, I think it's great that you have had that opportunity. And Grant, I wish they were giving you more of it.
Yeah, it's, part of the problem with the undergraduate program is they've got so many things they have to teach that are mandated, by the state or whatever, that sometimes it's difficult to get new stuff like this, even in the curriculum. I worked on that at James Madison University when I was there. And we actually tried really hard to introduce soft skills, and it got turned down by the legislators in the state, which was crazy, but that's what happened. So we never got to teach it. And, it's just, it's unfortunate. We need those skills more than ever today, I would argue. So anyone else? Anything they want to add to it?
I was going to say, Dennis, this is Eva. NC State MBA program had a pretty good consumer behavior class that addressed some of these from more of a tactile skill point about how to approach a customer in the market with different types of methodology, and then kind of rounded it with some soft skills. But over my professional years, I've had a lot of this EQ training. A lot of what was said here was kind of repeated, but it's always good to hear. I think it's a very difficult thing to learn, no matter how much training you've had in sales or EQ. It is the presence of mind to do it sincerely and not to do it as you're selling or pitching or try to take advantage of. I think people can read through that a lot, So you have to be really careful there, right? We're not, as entrepreneurs or professionals, it is our personal brand equity also that we need to be aware of here when we're delivering these messages. And it's not the end sale that we reach. A lot of times I will talk to prospects professionally just to consult them because of my years of experience that I want to be helpful. Maybe I'm sitting on a board somewhere within the industry. So I think it's your personal brand that you have to be mindful of. And as a speaker also said, and Dennis, many startups fail. So we're in a space with a lot of failure. We don't want our personal brand to fail because of some language we put out during one of our many adventures in this entrepreneurship position. So that's it. Thank you for resharing it. It's a really tough subject, and I thought the information was excellent and well delivered from Techstars. You could tell that she was a pro pitcher. So thanks.
Yeah, she's a managing director of their largest group in Los Angeles, and is also a angel investor. So yeah, she's really good. Okay, well that's all I have for today. I really enjoyed this class. You all are very interactive. I appreciate that, and all of you have a lot to share with others. So don't continue to bring that forward. Continue to share what you know. None of us have a lock on all this, all the right things to do. We're all learning, and it's a process. You never reach the finish line. I like to say it's kind of how it works. So I'll see everyone tomorrow, and thanks a lot for coming in today. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Dennis, did you get the email from?
I did.
Okay, good.